This is the Recovery Lab.
Here we dive deep into the struggles, victories, and hope that stem from recovery.
No shame, no judgment, just truth, grace, and inspiration.
Let's walk this road together.
Hey guys, welcome back to Recovery Lab. This is episode 141, and I'm Brynn Knox.
I'm David Sugg.
I'm Daniel Anderson.
And today we have the one and only Jordan Butler.
That's right.
Happy to be here.
Yeah,
Welcome.
glad to have you.
So how you been doing lately? What's going on? I hear there's a golf tournament coming up.
There is McCoy House. We are launching our first annual McCoy House Recovery Classic. It's kicking off May 8th. It's going to be at Live Oaks, and it's going to be an all-day event, a 4-person scramble. I'm learning a lot about golf in all of this. I know nothing about golf. And
You have 22 teams?
22
With these
teams.
4-person teams?
4-person teams.
That's a lot,
We
yeah.
do. And so, people are coming in from out of town, which is going to be really fun.
Yeah.
Folks are going to be obviously from all around the city.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got tons of really cool prizes, which is going to be great. So we have door prizes, first, second, and third place.
Mm-hmm.
All the things golf related we're doing.
Well, everybody pray for good weather.
Yeah.
'Cause we don't
Yes.
need rain that day. We need good
Yes.
weather.
Yes, for sure. And I love Live Oaks. That's my aunt and uncle's golf course. And so I'm biased that it's the best
Oh.
golf course there is around.
Well, she was just bragging when we were talking about before about how much work they put out there and how nice it is, the bridal suites, the
It's
new bunkhouses. I mean, they've
beautiful.
really made some capital improvements.
Yeah.
It's been a lot.
So Catherine is your aunt?
Yeah.
She's
Very cool.
wonderful.
Isn't she amazing?
No, she's amazing. And it's a great space. They're actually going to have the restaurant. They've redone the restaurant
Yep.
too. So that's going to be available to us. I don't think it'll be fully functioning as a restaurant, but like we're going to eat there. Like the space will be finished. So, I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's going to be exciting. So May 8th.
May 8th.
Okay. All right.
Do you golf?
I've golfed before.
You ever top golfed? Have you ever gone and just smack some balls?
Oh, absolutely. See, I'm
Okay.
good at that. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at it, but I'm bad at keeping the ball to go like straight.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like it goes over here, and there's
Yeah.
no. But when
Yeah, well,
it
I've
goes where I want it to, I'm like,
Yeah,
Been
I've never hit a
practicing.
golf
Did that.
ball, so I'm learning a lot. I didn't even know how many holes there were. I'm just learning. But we have a great golf committee that's helping put this on. So
That's cool.
nice,
Yeah.
nice.
it's going to be great.
Well, I know some guys that are doing it, and they're pumped. They're excited to do it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's the point, right? You got
It
to
is
have
the
some
point.
fun and
Yeah,
do
it's
something for a
gonna
good
be-
cause.
I mean, we've got folks, again, out of state, in state. Obviously, it's an alcohol-free event because we're doing, it's recovery. Apparently, people cheat in golf. Didn't know that was a thing.
Absolutely.
Because we were like, we work an honesty program.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here? But yeah, it's gonna be really fun.
That's cool.
I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, good for y'all.
Yeah.
What gave you the idea to do golf? Scramble?
Denise Marsters.
Denise. Yeah.
She comes up with all the good ideas. So she was in conversation with a woman who I guess you know, Shannon. Maybe she's.
My
I
other
forget how
aunt?
everyone's connected. Kyle was her brother.
Oh, that's my aunt.
That's your aunt.
My
of
aunt
course.
Shannon.
Your aunt Shannon, you know her. Yeah,
We've met.
yeah, once or twice. Yeah, they were just in conversation, and
Uh-huh.
she figured out that
Yeah.
you know how it goes. It's like, oh, you're connected to this, and she was like, we really want to do something like for McCoy House and for recovery, and it was like, what about a golf tournament?
Perfect.
So this kind of got born about a year ago, and then we really started planning in January, like kind of hit the ground running with that, and we're 2 weeks away.
Good for y'all. Good
Yeah,
job.
yeah, it's gonna be super fun.
Okay, well, I want to pivot because you have a story and I want to hear it. We talk about what it was like and what it's like now. And so I want to know what it was like. Where did your mess start?
Yeah. Where did the mess start? So I was actually kind of thinking about this on the way here. Because you know how when you're about to start telling your story a little bit and you're like, what was it like? So I grew up in Jackson, and the mess really started in high school for me. And the mess started with me figuring out that I could change the way that I feel.
Mm.
And for me, that looked like it started for me with food and exercise. That was my first drug of choice, if you will. And that worked until it didn't,
Mm-hmm.
as the story goes. And I took it as far as I could take it. And
If you don't mind me asking, when did you
Yeah.
know that was a problem? Like, when did it become like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't just love working out and I don't
yeah,
just,
when the doctors told me, when the intervention happened.
oh, so it took a,
Oh, it took, yeah. So it started with like, I was, I think, a sophomore in high school, rising sophomore. My sister had left. I have a sister who's immediately older than me. And she had graduated. And so it was like I was kind of out from her shadow. And we had a great relationship. But I don't know, it was kind of this perfect storm. I started, exercising like crazy, and I lost a ton of weight and got all this praise. And
Mhm.
the story, how it goes. And so, and it felt wonderful, and I felt like totally in control, right? And pretty quickly, by the middle of my junior year, I'd already been, seeing a dietitian. Bless my parents just didn't know what to do with me. And there's a tipping point in weight loss, right? So I was severely anorexic, like exercise, running 12 miles a night. I mean, just the works, right?
Yeah.
Nothing about it was sustainable. And I got to a point where, I was having to do weigh-ins once a week and all that. And it got to a point where the doctor I was seeing, it was like, okay, we've like hit, there's like based on your height, there's a weight. I don't know what the term for it is, but it was like, okay, we're at the point where like we're going to have to intervene or something has to change.
Can I ask you, with those weigh-ins, like, what was that like for you? Like, were you hoping it was staying the same? Were you
It
hoping
was
you
a
had
game.
lost?
It was, and I say it was a game. It was all like, it was kind of manipulative in a way. Like I would go, the memories that I have of it, I would go and I would chug like as much water as I could. Like I'd put on a pound or two in water. I mean, it was a pretty desperate situation at that point.
Yeah.
And I just really, I didn't care about the health risk. I didn't care about what was happening to me. I just was addicted to it.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just like, it had worked for me. And I was kind of like, y'all are all just out of whack, right? I'm the one who's healthy, delusional. I
Mhm.
mean, the whole bit. And I got to a point where, again, like I couldn't live with it. And I couldn't live without these coping mechanisms that I had, kind of learned to rely on. And so the pendulum swung.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went the full opposite direction because, I had no relationship that was healthy with food. So I began binging. I put on 50 pounds in a year or something. I just went the total opposite way. Bulimia, all of that. And by the end of my senior year, so my senior year was pretty miserable. And I had always kind of dabbled in drinking and smoking weed and that kind of thing as just like a high schooler. But, getting access to it was hard. I've always looked really young. It's one of the things that drives me crazy. So it's not like I was buying my own alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And my senior year, I was really unhealthy and just struggling. My parents, again, were just kind of like, we don't really know what to do. So I went to, see doctors and therapists and all of that. But I wasn't really at a point where I wanted to admit I had a problem. I mean, I knew there was a problem, right? But I wasn't there yet. And my parents really wanted, so they were like, I was like going to do a gap year. I was in that, like, I'm not going to college. And my parents were like, no, you're going to college. Like, you are not staying here. You are not, like, and that would have been horrible for me. Like,
Yeah.
a year unstructured at that point in my life would have been horrible for me. I was
Mhm.
not, that would have been a nightmare. And so what ended up happening is I got into college, and a good girlfriend of mine and I originally had this plan. We were like, we're going to go hike the Himalayas. That was our plan. And my parents were like, do you even know where the Himalayas are? Like, have you even looked at, like, what it costs to fly to Nepal? Like, do you know anything? We
What are
knew
these
nothing.
nonsense
No, right.
questions?
But what ended up happening is she got into school. I got into school. She got a scholarship she couldn't defer. And we decided to hike the Appalachian Trail this summer when between high school and college. And it saved my life.
Really?
Yeah. It was, and again, none of this was like the thought process behind it. I was just ready to get the hell out of Dodge. I didn't care where I went, I was ready to get out of Mississippi. I was ready to just go. And I don't remember much about how this all came to be other than we settled on the Appalachian Trail. Like the day after I graduated, we loaded up in a van and drove to Amicalola Falls. My parents made us take a guy with us. He dropped off in Tennessee. I'll just let you know.
In the knock?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And no. It was after that, because I do remember him being there, but it was in Tennessee.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it was like what I think rehab is for folks. It plucked me out of my environment. It took away the thing that I use to change the way that I feel. Food became this thing that I had to carry and like measure and like use as fuel. Like I had to have, right? Like it was just this total reset for me. I physically reset, which I really needed because I'd just been banging on my body and just like, right? Like it was amazing. It was adventure. And we hiked 550 miles as
Wow.
18-year-olds. Yeah. And it saved my life at that point. And so we went off to college. And so I ended up headed off to a really small school in Eastern Tennessee. And the pattern for me, is the food and exercise thing didn't work anymore. So I found something else. And I went to a school that had very much a like work hard, play hard mentality. And so, yeah, I just started drinking and doing drugs like everybody else. And so it was a great, it was not hard to find somebody who wanted to party.
Yeah.
And some bad things happened in college. And yeah, I just...
Do you want to talk about them or you don't want to talk about them?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't think I need to. But
Okay.
but it was and again, like I had a great college experience on the whole. But it was where I really got this taste for, I liked how alcohol and drugs made me feel. And I really liked it. And I didn't like it just a little. And part of so these themes, I think, is what happens for a lot of people. I have always kind of been able to kind of keep a facade up, right? So I'm in school, get off my back, right? Like I've graduated, get off my back, right? Like you couldn't tell me anything. Like I'm healthy, I'm running. Don't you want me exercise? Like, so I could always kind of, thwart off the concern or the feedback. And I did graduate. Sometimes I'm like, how did that happen? But I did.
What'd you major in?
I was an art history major, and which I loved. I went to a school that was very academically challenging for me. I went in totally unprepared, or sort of prepared, but like I got in. And again, I've met some of the most amazing people who are still my friends today. You know, it was not all bleak and terrible. And again, I found art history. I was like, I need to find something I can pass. Like it was that kind of situation. And got a great education, lived abroad. Yeah, it was great.
What do you love about art history? What drew you to that?
You know, honestly, initially what drew me were two things. I had an awesome professor, right? Kind of how the story goes. Like you meet this person that you're like, oh my God, I want to be like you. And part of my experience at Sewanee, and I've also learned this just, you know, as you learn kind of how your brain works. And I am a very visual person. So if you like hand me a sonnet and tell me to like read it and analyze it and write a paper, like that's an incredibly difficult task for me. Writing in general is not a strong suit of mine. But when you give me something to look at and it's like, let's talk about this. Like, let's talk about the history of this. Let's dissect this. I was like, oh, I can do this. And I found it really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I was really drawn to like the history part. But it just kind of was the thing that worked with my brain. You know, reading and analyzing was not for me. Numbers, not so much. Liked science, but didn't want to pursue it. And mind you, like I went to college with no plan. Like there was no like, I know what I want to do. I just wanted to get out. And it was great. It was great. I also was an education minor. That was also something I was super interested in. But yeah, made it through those 4 years and graduated in 2008 in the middle of the recession with a liberal arts degree as an art history major. And it was like, great, what are we going to do now? And of course, in true fashion, and I'll tell you this is a really cool part of my recovery journey, but I don't remember this at the time. This was given back to me right when I got sober in 2018. But my mother wrote me a letter when I was graduating. And it's actually still in my big book. And it's dated Palm Sunday, 2008. And it's a short letter. And she's basically asking me in this letter, the way she words it is to leave it all here on the mountain. We called the school where I went it wasn't on a mountain, it was on a plateau, but it was called the mountain. It was like, leave it here. Leave this all behind you. And what she was referring to was the lifestyle I was living, which had always just been a terror for them and was for much longer than that. And she signed it at the end. And she references the still small voice, you know, which is kind of her reference to her higher power, which she calls God. And she signed it, "Do it for me, Mama." I don't remember this letter from that year. Flash forward 10 years when I got, so she'd given it to me in a copy of Addiction and Grace, which she had also gifted me at that time, which I did not read.
But you were like, thanks, Mom.
Yeah. It was one of those. And when I ended up getting sober, she gave it back to me. Same book, same letter. But she had crossed out "Do it for me," and she wrote in "Do it for yourself," which is just kind of a really powerful thing for me.
That's going to make me cry.
Yeah. But I didn't get sober in 2008. I decided to go on a road trip. And landed in New Orleans. A college friend of mine was there, and I had been doing job interviews, and again, it was really hard to like find a job at that point. But I got a job in a restaurant in New Orleans. New Orleans was a pretty wild time.
No.
You know, it's kind of an extension of, it's not hard to find people who want to do what you want to do. And so was there for a year. I actually worked at the Melting Pot. I'm a fondue connoisseur.
Cool.
In case you didn't know. And, you know, rented a house with my, college friend and lived the restaurant life. So a lot of partying, all that.
The restaurant life is fun.
Yeah, it was fun. And
At the time.
really did love it. Kind of met, I love being on my feet. I love talking to people. I was down for it.
Yeah. When it closes and y'all are all together and
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
that's the time,
Yeah,
you
and
know.
you like walk across the street to the 24-hour
Yep.
bar,
Yeah.
which is not hard to find in New Orleans. And we went to this great bar, and I say great, but it was a 24-hour bar laundromat
Wow.
called Igor's. I think it's still there. It's
Yeah.
on St. Charles. Yeah. And like we just had cash.
Yeah.
It was like we were doing this. And so it was fun,
Yeah.
right? It was wild. And I was there for a year. I started working in a school, and the way I remember it, I think this is how it went. My sweet father was like, so this was before you could stay on your parents' health insurance, right? And my dad was like, you need health insurance. And I was like, all right, they had bought like a Cobra plan that was like an extension of what I had in school. I don't know how all that worked, but they were like, okay. And I've always been pretty fiercely independent, almost to a fault. So it's very much like, I'm going to make my own money and I'm not going to need anything from anybody. And with that, you're not going to tell me what to do.
Mm.
So from there, I started applying. I knew I wanted to work in a school. It kind of fit. I'm not a desk person. I'm not a computer person. So I'd submitted some applications and ended up in, I submitted an application to the charter school network in New Orleans because you don't have to have a teaching license to work in a charter school.
Okay.
And they were like, well, first of all, you're an art history major. Like, what are we going to do with that? And they were pretty straight up with me. They were like, you don't really stand a chance if you're not on track to get a license. Like, we're flooded with Teach for America applicants who are, like, you don't really stand a chance. But my application got picked up by a place called KIP, which is a charter school network in Helena, Arkansas, which is in the Delta, right across from Clarksdale. So if you've ever been to Clarksdale, Mississippi, you can literally jump the river and you're in Helena.
Wow.
So it's right there on the river. It's a tiny town. And strangely enough, it is the birthplace of my grandmother and grandfather.
Wow.
So it's not a random. Now, I didn't know. I'd never been there before, to my memory. I'd been there as a very small child. But anyway, they offered me a job. And I was like, I got to go. And, New Orleans had run its course. It was time to get out there. So I moved to the Arkansas Delta. I was there for 5 years. And I taught. It was like the hardest thing I've ever done at that point in my life. Loved it. I was an art teacher. I was an English teacher to begin with, which I hated. I was a 6th grade English teacher. So I taught grammar, which is the worst.
That sounds terrible.
It was the worst because it was like explaining verbs and like punctuation. And like my kids were fabulous. Like the teachers I worked with were fabulous. I even had some family members there, like my great aunt Mar, who's my namesake. My first name's actually Martha. Never gone by Martha. But she lived there at the time.
Oh.
So it was kind of cool. It was like
Yeah.
this, like I saw, I had some family there and it was this cool Delta town and, built up a great community. I got out of teaching English because they realized I was an art history major and they were like, do you want to teach art? And I was like, yeah, I want to teach art. So I started an art program. But
so they didn't have one.
no,
And okay.
not an
That's
official
cool.
one. And this school, this charter school in particular, it was still really growing when I got there. And so even while I was there, we moved buildings because they built us a new building. So it was kind of constantly expanding. And so I did that. And as far as my addiction, my drinking, my drug use, it was just all this slow progression.
So it wasn't getting in the way of your work and stuff like that, or was it?
I mean, I'll tell you this. I always showed up for work.
Mm-hmm.
Were you teaching art drunk?
No. No.
Which could be fun.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I guess if I could have, maybe I would have,
Mhm.
you know. Now, did I teach art hungover? Yeah. But again, like maybe I've just been lucky enough, or it's just kind of how I'm wired. Like I've just kind of always, thanks. Kind of been in situations where it was like there was enough work I mean, it was a really hard job. Like when I first got there, we had an extended school day. So I got to work before the sun rose. I mean, I was getting to work probably about 5:30. I would teach until 5 p.m.
What?
4 days a week. Yeah, we had early dismissal on Wednesdays, and we had kids getting bussed all over. Like even kids from like 40, because it was the Delta, right? Like, I mean, you know, there weren't a ton of schools, so there were people who would bus in to the charter school from like 40 miles away.
That's a long day.
It was a long day. It was a lot of work. It was super hard. I mean, super rewarding. But I was on a pretty steep learning curve, right? I mean, your first year teaching is kind of, I wouldn't say it's like your first year of sobriety, but it's like one of those things you never have to do again. You know, it's like, I mean, if you don't want to, like, it's really hard. But then, like, once you do that first year, like, it's under your belt, right? Like, it does get easier, but it's just kind of a trial by fire. You just have to go through it. So yeah, I mean, it was great. And again, met some really incredible people. That's when I actually picked back up hiking. So hiking took a pause because I was, you know, in school, and as a school teacher, I had summers off. Went through a horrible breakup and picked up hiking again. But there was just always, you know, there wasn't a lot to do. It was kind of like how it was in college. Like in college, we were in this really, like, there were no, like, the school was it. And so when I lived in Helena, it was kind of like, this was it, you know? And so we would just party, and I could find the people that liked to party that I liked, you know? And I could just hold it together well enough. That was always kind of the deal. And so that kind of ran its course. And by my 5th year, I was pretty burnt out, both like physically. And again, mind you, like at no point had I admitted I had a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And through all of this, there were countless stories of just insanity. I mean, and y'all know them. You know, I got pulled over and I didn't know it. And I, you know, every time I went home, it was just like a nightmare for my parents and them having to find me, and them, I mean, just all the
things.
nonsense, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't have a problem. I had a job and like I was independent. Like you weren't going to tell me about me.
I mean, you had your own health insurance.
I mean, right? Of course, right? And so by the 5th year, it was time for my geographical change. I, you know, and it just got worse and worse and worse for me, to where, you know, I just really couldn't. I'll tell y'all a really embarrassing story. So the end of my 5th year, I was like, okay, I don't really like the school grind is a little too much for me, but I knew I wanted to work with, you know, kids. And so this obvious connection for me was social work. I loved working. So working in a really small school, like I got to work with families and like siblings. So like I would have your sister, and then I had your brother 3 years later. And like I knew it was just, you know, it was this really tight-knit community. And I loved addressing the things that were affecting my kids outside of school, right? Like all the things that were going on that were affecting them being present with me was really kind of what I felt like my calling was. So it felt like social work was what was next for me. So I started applying for graduate school. My 5th year, I was like, I don't think this is going to work anymore. I'd gone through this terrible breakup. It was like, okay, this is falling apart. I need to like move on. And, you know, the bottom just kept lowering for me. And one summer, or right before the summer, I got into graduate school and I agreed to work summer school. And I went to our end of the year party. And mind you, this is like every teacher, every principal, this is everybody. And there was a lot of drinking by me. I mean, it was a party where everyone was drinking, but of course, like always, I took it way too far. And ended up, I woke up in my assistant principal's living room on the couch in her son's shorts, which she had given me.
Stop it.
Okay, she gave them to me. You know, it was just, it
I
was,
bet, yeah.
you know, looking back, it's like, what are you doing?
Mhm.
You know, now again, we know it's like, but whatever. But I was going to graduate school. So again, y'all couldn't tell me anything.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that chapter closed and I moved to Little Rock, Arkansas. And I did a concurrent master's program there. I did a master's in public service and a master's in public health.
Wow.
And it was great. I had, in that time in the Delta, become really interested in like food and food environments. And I didn't go the social work route because I was like applying to all these schools where I was like, I don't think I need to spend $150,000 on a social work degree. You know, I did very little planning going into my undergraduate degree. And so I was trying to do a little bit more planning with this. But anyway, so I ended up in Little Rock and it was great. Again, kind of more of this slow progression. You know, just drank all the time. But I went to school and I, you know, could like hold it together well enough to do what I needed to do. Continued like by this time I'm still like section hiking. And so, yeah, again, kind of this facade of like, I'm good. You know, I'm doing things like I'm fine. I was not fine. And by the end of so when it was time for me to graduate, it was 2017 and I got this it was one of those, you know, this was one of those things that like, you know, God was teeing up for me and I just didn't know it at the time. But I found out about this job opportunity in Jackson, Mississippi. Now, my parents have lived here ever since, you know, they've always been here. So this has always been home. I had zero desire to come back to Jackson. I was like, I'm not coming back. But my mom was at some kind of presentation, ran into a gentleman who was looking for someone he basically had gotten a planning grant. He gotten funding to start up a nonprofit in Jackson, but he needed someone to run it. And it was for a workforce training program that also had a cafe connected to it. And it kind of perfectly, so when I was in graduate school, all of my work was around nutrition education and food environments and health outcomes. And that was actually all my graduate work was focused on that. And it kind of was just like, okay, you can't, like, what else are you going to do? I was teaching cooking classes in Little Rock, which I loved, but I couldn't make a living doing it. And so I took the job, went on another long hike, and at the end of that summer, moved home and came home to found something called the Refill Jackson Initiative, which is still in existence today. But for me in my recovery journey, that's when the wheels really started to come off. I moved home and didn't have a community. I mean, I had some friends who were still here. And I was working alone because I was like the sole employee. It was just me. So I didn't really have a whole lot of accountability, which was really problematic for me at that time. I was working from home, which was a terrible thing for me. And kind of the loneliness and like the being overwhelmed and the lack of accountability and just like my current lifestyle, right? All created this just like perfect storm. And what turned and it so when it was just like I was kind of that friend that, people were like, okay, can you please just like please hold it together tonight? I was never like a mean drunk or like an angry drunk. I was just that person who always took it too far.
You had to be babysat.
Yeah, a lot. And so it was just like really uncool. And now at this point, I'm my early 30s and it's just like, it's really getting old. Like it was like kind of fun, it was like you can kind of blow some of that stuff off because a lot of people do that, I guess. But yeah, so that last year, it just got really bad. And it turned into like all day drinking. I mean, it was the whole, and mind you, I had never like tried to get sober at this point. Like I had never, now people have been begging me to like get sober, control it, change, for years.
But you truly didn't believe like that this was a problem, right?
Not yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew.
I was the same way.
Yeah, I don't like. I think I knew, but I didn't really want to look at that.
Right.
I mean, like, again, like once I like graduated from, when I graduated from my graduate programs, it was also this kind of like this shouldn't really be happening anymore. But again, like you just couldn't tell me anything, and so like I think I knew, but yeah. I don't really.
And then when people are encouraging us to quit or to tighten up or to do whatever, we don't even know what that means. It's just like, what do you like? Because we get at that spot, we can't imagine it with life without it. This seems normal. Like, what do you mean? Like, am I going to stop being me? This is me. Like,
oh yeah.
Getting sober just didn't even make any sense. Like, what is? Like,
Yeah.
I cut back, or you might, okay, maybe I shouldn't drink during the week, or maybe whatever. But for so long, it just didn't even make sense to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and again, like I was living under this such like false idea that like it wasn't a problem because like I could I don't know how I didn't get a DUI. I don't know. Like that's just my story. Like I don't know how I was never arrested. I don't know how I never like God forbid hurt someone. Like I don't know how I skated by, how that missed me, but it did. And yeah, it was just kind of this like, but why? I mean, especially as the years went on, like, yeah, I got old, like feeling like shit, but like, it's just kind of what I knew, it was like, and so, yeah, like so I moved here in July of 2017 and it got really bad. And that Christmas, you know how like they're like these key moments you can like remember. Most of it's kind of a blur. Like but that Christmas was it was really bad. We had gone to go see my family, my dad's side of the family that Christmas. We flew up to right outside of Boston and, Christmas Eve, I, drank till, I passed out on the floor. Same, we had to wake up the next day. No one's talking about it. Like my parents are tired of talking about it. We had to go take our like Christmas family picture. I'm like dying. Just, and again, like we're just not talking about it anymore. Like everyone's just like, it's kind of expected from me, I guess, at this point. I think everyone was just kind of, at every instance, like, please, let's hope she just doesn't do it again. And so that was like a pretty pretty miserable trip. And then what sent me over the edge was, I guess, my real bottom. So with work, I was in charge. Like I said, I was hired to take on this planning grant. And what we were doing was launching an entire program. So it was a full nonprofit, had to put a board together, hire staff, like the whole 9 yards. And what was baked into this, my contract, was that I was going to spend 6 months in New Orleans working with kind of a sister organization. So the model that we were building here in Jackson existed in other places in the country. And so our funder was like, we want you to work direct, because it's like, why reinvent the wheel? People have already built this before. So I was essentially kind of scheduled to go immerse myself in this program down in New Orleans. And initially it was going to be for 6 months and I was just going to move there. But the way we ended up working it out is for about a 3-month period, I drove down to New Orleans every Sunday and got an Airbnb and drove back every Thursday. And so I spent Monday through Thursday in this program and basically kind of shadowed the participants, right? So that I could see as much as I could to bring that back to Jackson. And toward sometime in February, I hit my total bottom. And it was a bottom that I had unfortunately been there before, but for some reason, this time
Felt it.
I was like, I'm going to die doing this. I woke up. I think my mother's going to listen to this, but she can hear it. I woke up. I had a drug dealer in New Orleans. And so again, it was kind of like my MO. Like I worked, like I would go to work, like I always did. And then I'd party and get drunk. And kind of whatever I could get my hands on. But alcohol was always available, right? So, and I had a drug dealer in New Orleans, and I remember the Airbnb that I was staying in. I'd finished my work day. I actually had a conference call with someone in Jackson, and I had, made this bargain with myself. I went to Trader Joe's and bought 2 bottles of $2 Chuck, and I was like, I'm only going to drink, I'm only going to drink one. And I drank both of them. And he called me and was like, do you want to meet me wherever, some bar? And I was like, yeah. And that's the last thing I remember. And I woke up at a drug dealer's house on a couch. There was a pit bull, I think, sleeping with me or sleeping. There was another person, so these 2 couches. And I was like, okay. Didn't know where my car was. Didn't know where my clothes were. I didn't know. I mean, it was just this like really bad place, right? Like I'm here for work, mind you, too, right? Like, which is just like, again, so much of my story, right? Like of this kind of like, and so I found my drug dealer and I was like, I need you to help me find my car. And I found my car and I was like driving. And I was like, and again, like situations like this, unfortunately, were not uncommon for me. But for some reason this time it was like, okay, like I was at this like jumping off point. And I didn't do anything about that at that point. I just was like, okay, like what are you doing? Like you're right. And so all in that time frame, my therapist fires me. And mind you, I've been in therapy like my whole life. I loved therapy. I've had some great therapists. And I'd been seeing this therapist since I moved back to Jackson. And we were doing this like harm reduction therapy. I was lying through my teeth to her, as I had to most therapists, not being honest at all. She eventually was like, I don't think I can help you, but I am going to refer you to my colleague who, so I don't know if that was before or after. These were kind of all in this same period, because my sobriety date is March 29th. So this was February. At some point, she fires me, and she refers me to he's still my therapist today, Dr. Mike Box. He's the absolute best. And she was like, and he, works with people in addiction. That's not how she sold it to me. She was just like, why don't you go see this guy? So I went and saw him, and he did an assessment. And the way I remember it is he was like, okay, you need to go to inpatient. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, and I mean, I couldn't go to inpatient treatment. I have a job. Do y'all know who I am?
Yeah.
Right? It was one of those. And he was like, well, how about this? How about you come to this evening program, which was an IOP, and didn't tell me anything about it. And again, kind of one of these other stars aligned. I actually that that spring I got a refund check, right? When I did my taxes. And it was the exact amount that insurance didn't cover, right?
Shut the fuck up.
Insurance covered some, but then there was like $3,100 that insurance or something, right?
And that came in the mail?
And it just showed up. It was like, here it is.
God wink.
So my plan was I wasn't going to tell anybody. I wasn't going to tell my parents. Again, I'm going to do this all on my own. I'm going to pay for it myself. And I signed up for this IOP. And basically at that point, I'd like to say, right, and the rest is history. But again, right, that's where the work began. So I just, after that experience, kind of ending up with Mike, ending up in this IOP, and then we joke, because then as I, continued in the IOP, he was like, oh, yeah, and you're going to have to go to AA 3 times a week. I'm like, what? You didn't tell me that part.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about AA, didn't know anything about, getting sober. My dad's been sober my whole life. He's never, worked he doesn't go to AA or anything like that. But, that's kind of the extent I knew about sobriety was, I just kind of knew. And through the years, my father, from time to time, when the conversation would come up of okay, we're going to have this conversation again, he would talk about the peace. He would say, he got sober, 35 years ago. And, he was like, the peace that you will find if you just give all this up and just, and I, of course, at that point wasn't having it. And so my recovery journey began, right? And I just, at that point, was just first of all, I'm paying for this, right? So I'm going to just do whatever these people tell me to do. Nothing I was doing worked. None of it worked anymore. I'd taken it all as far as it would go. And I was very much at that point, it's I couldn't live with it and couldn't live without it. And what do I do? And so I just kind of held on. I started IOP, was doing therapy, and I started going to AA.
Did those things seem just completely drastic, duck out of water, or was it hey, this kind of makes sense? Or did you quickly kind of settle into a vibe that was something you wanted to do, or was it just this is weird? I mean, going to a meeting and they're talking about God, but they're not talking about, they're all talking about a different kind of version, and they're holding their hands and praying before and after.
I could tell you this, I remember, how weird, it's kind of a blur in a way, right? And it's a sober blur at this point, right? I remember the first meeting I ever went to. I remember he took me, and I went to Yana upstairs. Don't really remember much about the meeting. I was terrified. I don't even think I picked up a 24-hour chip. I don't know. And I don't really remember much about it then. But I thankfully was willing to just start taking some direction. So I got a sponsor. She's still my sponsor to this day. She's fantastic. And I just did what people told me to. I didn't believe in it. I didn't the God thing, I was like, let me roll my eyes. Like, what? I knew, though, that what resonated with me in going to those meetings was kind of two things. One is when I walked into those rooms, I knew that I wanted what they had. That was very clear to me. And the second thing was, for the first time in my life, or maybe to this level, like I was around people who were authentic. And I'd never really been, it was like, that's what I wanted. And I didn't know how to be, I just knew I was miserable. And I didn't know anything, right? Like I just was like, you know, yeah, I knew, I don't know what I knew other than that. And I just, that kind of desperate, I was just desperate enough that I was like, okay, you say go to these things, I'll go to these things. And it just, I got connected with a whole group of people in recovery, most of which are still like my dearest friends today, right? Everything I did was with folks in recovery. And, slowly but surely, things kind of started to get better. Now, I will say, for me, I was very irritated in the beginning. I heard people talking about like the pink cloud and, oh my God, I did my 4-step and I felt this like huge like sigh of relief. And I did not experience any of that. I got sober and like woke up to this person and this life that like I had been running from, right? Or desperately trying to orchestrate to make it look like it was like, I just didn't know how to be myself. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't like myself. I was blessed with like, I had some really great friends, but I just didn't know how to be. I didn't know how to do this thing. I didn't know what was fun. And just all that relearning. So even like when I did my 4-step, I'll never forget. Kelly's my sponsor's name, and I did my 4-step, and we moved on to like, the 6th and the 7th, and I just remember, she handed me this list of defects and assets, and I was like, I have all the defects, I have none of that. I don't know, I just felt, I was like, this sucks, and a lot of my amends, I did have to do some face-to-face amends, but a lot of them were living amends, like with my parents. Like, they didn't want to hear anything from me anymore. Most of my friends didn't want to hear anything from me anymore. Like, they needed to see me do better and, like, show up and be honest and, like, do what I say I'm going to do, right? Like, so it took a while. I will say, though, like, physically, like, I did feel better physically. Like, I didn't know what real, like, sleep was and, like, regular eating. And I started, like, exercising. Right? Like,
Sweetie,
started, like...
Sweetie, that was your pink cloud. That was it.
Maybe so. Maybe that was it.
3 hours on a cot and 8 hours of sleep for the first 3 months. Like, wow. That's it.
And... yeah, I got really lucky. Kind of like I see in like so many instances in my life. Like so many people crossed my path. And I found this community that like, it's my people. It's my thing. I fit right in. I think what also really drew me to AA, I grew up in a church. I don't have like strong feelings one way or the other about it in that sense. Like I went because my parents went. it didn't like mean a whole lot to me. It wasn't a fire and brimstone kind of thing. I didn't like grow up fearing God or anything like that. But it just, it was something, I was just checked out all the time, And so when I got sober, like when I saw the whole God thing and I'm like in the South, right? I'm like, oh Lord, we say the Lord's Prayer and I'm like, what is this? But like, it was kind of this church I'd never been a part of before. I never found this community. I think there's something about, they say there's a woman in my group who always talks about how, alcoholism is the, equal opportunity destroyer. Is that right? Will take you from Yale or jail. Like, it didn't matter who I was. It didn't matter this life that I'd like propped up. Like, all of that was pushed to the side, right? It was just like, I had to do a lot of growing up. That was really painful. I really didn't like that part. Because I so terribly like wanted to be taken seriously my whole life. Yet I just wasn't doing things for people to really take me seriously. And so, yeah, like it's funny, like looking back, like if you had, I never would have guessed that like, right, this is how it would all turn out. Like I thought I was going to go get my card signed, do whatever I had to do to get you off my back so I could go do what I wanted to do.
Put this behind us and let's continue on our trajectory
right.
wherever
like,
it is we're
going. Let me
go
drink like a lady, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm here to do. Yeah. I had no idea what was in store for me. And I'm very much in that boat of, as so many people have said, I've heard people say, if I'd made a list of all the things that I'd wanted when I first got sober, I would have been selling myself short. It's definitely true for me. I just wanted to feel better. I wanted to just not hurt and feel the way that I felt. And like I said, luckily I was just desperate enough at the time where these things showed up in my life and here we are.
Rocking and serving. Now since you've gotten sober, you sat on the board of Yana, which is one of the biggest clubhouses, 12-step clubhouses in Jackson. You served on that for, what was that, 2 or 3 year run you did there? As president, as some other...
No, I was not president.
No.
I was secretary.
You had a couple, secretary.
Yeah. But yeah.
And now doing what you're doing for the McCoy House, which is, it's treatment. It's sober living. It's boots on the ground, working with women who've a lot, very similar story to what you've lived.
Yeah.
And God said, you're going to do some stuff here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you and I also have something very in common. You are married to one of my favorite people in the world, and I am married to one of your favorite people in the world. And like getting to have that community on top of all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it's funny working. So working at the McCoy House, I talked to a lot of women out of state and a lot of treatment centers out of state and a lot of case managers from out of state. And a lot of times, people are like, okay, tell me about this Jackson thing. Like, but what about Jackson? Like, whether it's a client or someone who's referring, there's like this hesitation about Jackson, right? And I'll tell you, Jackson's home. My parents are here. But again, like, as I look back on my story, whether I was in, this tiny mountain town or in the Delta or in New Orleans or in wherever it was, big, small, bumping, not bumping, all different kinds of places. What made the difference were, the people that I surrounded myself with. And I got lucky in all of those places to be able to meet some really incredible people. I've been really fortunate in that. But the AA community here in like when people are asking me, they're like, do you like living in Jackson? And I'm like, well, yeah, sure. Maybe Jackson leaves a couple of things to be desired. Okay. I'm like, but my community here, like, and you can build community, I guess, anywhere, sure. But, you know, getting sober and being able to be around my parents is a huge thing for me, like living in the same city with them and like having this time to, you know, build a new kind of relationship with them that I've been able to has been a real gift. And building this AA, you know, getting in the middle of the boat and trying to figure out ways to give it back. I mean, it's such a gift. And so, yeah, you know, Jackson, like people are, like one of my good friends lives out in LA, you know, and I'm like, whenever I go and visit, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I don't really want to live in LA. I could never deal with the traffic, but, you know, I'm like, and my husband like spent a lot of time out in LA and loves LA and like got sober in LA. And so, you know, there are times where I'm like, oh, what about a city that had, but you know what? Like my people are here.
Yeah.
The community, you just, you know, it's incredible. And so I tell people that. I'm like, yeah, I mean, sure. You know, maybe, you know, because like also being in the South, you know, people are like, is it super conservative or is it this? I'm like, you know, there's a little bit of everything here. You know, you can find your pockets. You know, it's got a lot of cool stuff going on. But we have really good recovery here. There's a really incredible, and I don't have anything to compare it to because I got sober here. So I don't know what it looks like in other places. I mean, I've been to meetings in other places, but I'm like, I mean, we have an incredible, you know, recovery community. And so I'm like, yeah, it's a great place to come. And in those contexts, like when I'm having those conversations, I'm like, yeah, come.
Yeah.
Come get sober here.
Yeah.
Come
Stay
on.
a while.
Yeah. And some people do.
Yeah.
Right?
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a great episode.
Yeah,
it's been really, really good. If you're tuning in late, remember tell us again, May 9th?
May 8th.
May
Friday, May 8th. McCoy House Recovery Classic. It's going to be at Live Oaks. If you're interested, you can go to our website, themccoyhouse.com. We've got a tab up there with all of our events. You can also email us through the website. If you're interested, want to join, want to come
Bringing a
hang
new
out.
meaning to Swinging Club. Come on. Okay.
I don't know that
Wow.
reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. It's a Swinging Club.
I can't either. No.
I'll be here all day, folks.
Jordan, thank you so
Oh
much
my
for
gosh.
coming.
Yeah.
It's
Glad
been
to
a
be
blast.
here.
I want to
You
get you
bet.
back on here, talk some more about McCoy House
Yeah,
and
we'll
all
do
the
that.
work you're
Absolutely.
doing
We'll do
there.
that.
It's so amazing.
We'll do that.
And so yeah, we'll see y'all next week. I can't.
Thanks.